right, thank you for joining us on the Boating Insider Podcast. We're leading up to the PVA event in Portland, and so we're interviewing a handful of the speakers that are going to be presenting there. So Shawn, you're going to be presenting there. Shawn Balding, you're the general manager of Canal Marine and Industrial. The presentation you're going to be giving is actually a 2-year performance review of Canada's first zero emissions lithium ion ferry. It'll be Sunday, January 28th at 3 p.m. So first off, thank you for joining. And
thank you for having me.
No problem. And just to kick it off, if you can give a quick background about yourself, and then let's dive right into what you're going to be presenting on.
Sure. Quick background. I've been in the electrical industry since 1993, but I only joined Canal in 2018, coming from a major electrical manufacturer. And I joined because Canal had the vision towards electrification and was going after projects that I found quite exciting in a market that I really liked and had only been kind of adjacent to, and that's the marine market. So when I joined in a role of commercial director, and one of the first opportunities that came across my bow, if you will, was a request for expression of interest to reduce the emissions of this little ferry, the Maryland Belle, which operates between downtown Toronto and the Billy Bishop Airport.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So so go ahead.
No, all right. So you came across this project, and I think that's what you're going to be highlighting in this presentation. So just to take one step back, you wanted to reduce the emissions initially, and then as we were talking before, you thought, well, why not skip the reduction and go straight to a zero emissions process? So what is a zero emissions lithium ion ferry? What does that actually mean in reality?
Yeah, so I mean, the operation of the vessel before, it was a conventional diesel vessel, 2 main engines and 2 generators servicing the house loads. And it would transit back and forth, do its job burning diesel to do that every day downtown Toronto. Now, the original ask from Ports Toronto was to reduce the emissions of both noise and pollutants.
Okay.
And we went to with the idea of like, let's not playing, well, how much can we reduce this by going with some kind of hybrid solution, and where can we flipped the script and went from the other side. Like, why not just make this vessel zero emission? And a zero emission ferry to us is in its operation that it isn't adding any CO2 to the environment. So in this case, we're bringing in electricity from the grid, and that is 100% accounting for all of the propulsion and hotel loads on the vessel. And in fact, on this vessel, when we were finished with it, there is no diesel generation or propulsion engines at all left on the vessel.
Okay. And so what were some of the challenges that you ran into as you guys took on this project and as you guys worked through it?
So, one of the things that, not just this project, but every electrification project, which is an initial challenge, is getting over, that range anxiety that people have. Like, okay, I'm all on batteries now. What happens when my batteries die? And so the biggest challenge up front was to be able to show within our proposal the amount of analysis that we have done to ensure that we were covering, certainly for the transits back and forth, but then again for some, extremist type scenarios that the captains may come into. So that was one of the first challenges, be able to put this in a solution and communicate it well enough that it was bought on by the client. And now this is one thing where I think we had a bit of an advantage here, because the client, their fundamental job is running an airport, and the ferry operation was completely ancillary to them. It's very important to them. In fact, the airport doesn't run if the ferry isn't running, because they can't get fuel for the planes. But they live in an airport world, and look at risk management. Give me an analysis. What's our exposure? Blah 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 blah. There's no inertia of kind of, oh, I've always operated a ship this way,
Sure.
and this is how we expect to operate. So I think that was where we had a bit of an advantage, is there was less inertia to get to the winning solution. But that was definitely one of the first challenges.
Okay, got it. So with the range issue is more showing, hey, it actually can handle this back and forth. And if you have other circumstances, and then just, the natural sales process, you're always going to come into some resistance and things like that. But that fortunately you didn't have that dug in issue from the start. What about the actual like implementation of this? And so what was that like? And then now that it's been about 2 years since it's running, I saw it was 2021. What are some of the things that you guys have found so far?
So through the project, there was kind of a few main phases for us: detailed design, then building of the system, and then the refit of the vessel and installation. So we were basically leading all of that with subcontractors and things like that to support us, like shipwrights, and we hired a naval architect and all of the things that you would think to do. Through the project, if anyone remembers what 2020 was, we certainly hadn't factored in a global pandemic in our project planning or anything like that. But it was challenging. It was certainly challenging. Not even like coming from the design phase to doing the build. We had to isolate staff in the process of building up the switchboards. In the presentation, you'll see a kind of a time lapse of the construction of those, and also you'll see some time lapse of the vessel removals, the diesel removals on the vessel and the refit process, which is kind of neat. But the whole time, it's not just what are the guys doing and gals doing in the project, but it's supply chain issues. Like one of the things that we're relying on equipment coming from all over the place. And I will tell you, there is one component that really threw me for a loop as to, I never thought this would have been an issue. So on the shore installation side, we have a tower that supports the charging infrastructure that we designed, and it adjusts for lake height. As the lake goes up and down throughout the year, the tower height gets adjusted as part of the solution. Part of that is a winch for lifting the thing, and we paid no mind when we suggested, okay, here's a winch on the specification we put out to contractors. Use that or somewhat like. They picked that one, and that one happened to come from an area which was very difficult to get components out of. So it was one of the last things to arrive. Fortunately, it's not anything that made the boat go back and forth. And so we got on without it. The contractor who had purchased it landed up having to come by every now and then and raise the tower with a crane. But in other than that, that was probably the main problem that we had to get over to get the system running.
In the grand scheme of things, not too bad.
Not too bad at all. Yeah, it was really the project itself was a pleasure. We got to execute it downtown Toronto, so very close to where it operates. The facilities where we did it, there's not a lot there. It's basically alongside a road with a dry dock, which was essentially an old ship which lifted it out of the water. And in fact, the refit didn't require a dry dock. They just timed it for the 5-year dry docking of the vessel, and we did our work at the same time. So
nice. All right, sneak it in there. Logistically, make it easier on everybody, probably. And so, what were the results that you've seen after 2 years? What were the metrics you were looking for, and what was the impact?
Yeah. So I mean, the Ports Toronto themselves had some. When I presented numbers to them, I presented what I thought were, some heuristics on what the savings could be, and they had done their own analysis, and so I now talk in their analysis in terms of what they expected to do. But they were looking to save something like 196,000 liters worth of diesel fuel per year, and reduce the emissions by 530 tons of CO2 per year. That is assuming that they would use the vessel all the time, every day. But the reality is they have another vessel which they swap in and out to do, for various reasons. If they want to do some service work on one vessel, they'll bring the other one in. If they have radio survey or anything else. And the other main reason, which is another reason why they get rid of diesels, is that they have to run a diesel. You have to run it in order to make sure that it still works. You can't set a vessel like their other vessel is a diesel plant. They can't just let it sit there. They need to work it, ensure and maintain the vessel. So operating it from time to time is required. So they were never gonna hit that 196,000 liters of diesel per year. But the vessel itself has been very, very reliable. And so when it has been running, it's been performing quite well. And so, I mean, I'll go over the numbers, but
sure,
maybe give away the plot.
I guess let's leave it there. So that way,
if you want, cliffhanger. There you go.
Yeah, we'll do a little cliffhanger for everybody listening. So all right, cool. So I'm interested to hear those findings, because I think there's a lot of notions out there of what goes into these things, if they're a net positive, if they're a net negative. Just from the basic understanding that I have, it seems to me like it's another part of the bigger mix, and it's a direction that's getting built out, and it's going to be here to stay in some ways. And I don't know that it's going to be a full replacement for everything. I'm just not seeing this apocalyptic view one way or the other of everything is all electric or everything is all diesel and it will never work.
I think, Chris, the trouble we get into is when we try and paint a complex picture with two colors. Right? And really, the first and foremost challenge with any repower or anything is to understand the problem. Like, you got to understand the client. And like one of the biggest things that, like the biggest investment we made in this, and the one that paid off the most, was spending a lot of time with the captain, spending a lot of time with the operations, and understanding like what the vessel needs to do, and making sure that on the day we delivered it, they knew how to operate it, and that it was going to work for them. So, but every vessel is different. Every situation is different. This solution works for this one. And I will say, actually, and I said this about this one, if this vessel couldn't be a zero emission vessel, then no vessel would be a zero emission vessel, because the crossing is so short. The dock to sailing time, that ratio is so high. So you have like a great opportunity. Your downtown Toronto infrastructure is great. So, that everything about this project just leaned towards its success. And I will give away one number, and that's how many round trips it's made in the 24 months it's been operating, and that's 40,000 round trips. The vessel operates 19 hours a day and does 4 round trips an hour. And so in that time, this vessel has done over 40,000 round trips.
40,000. Wow. Yeah. That's impressive.
Yeah. I'm not sure there is another zero emission ferry out there, even in Norway, that many crossings, but I'd be happy to eat my words there.
Cool. Well, Shawn, thanks for joining us on the show, man. I appreciate it. And so just to remind everybody, you'll be giving your presentation on Sunday, the 28th at 3 p.m. Where can people get in touch with you? www.canal.ca, or find me at the show. I'll be there at the booth as well, so I'd be happy to talk to people who come on by. Awesome. All right. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Take care. Thank you, Chris.